Welcome in everybody, and baby, it is back. The G7 Scout returned to floor loot this season, and I'm going to teach you how to use it. Let's jump into the G7's tips and strengths. The first tip I want to share with you guys is make the most of the G7's fire rate. The G7 has one of the fastest fire rates of any of the marksman weapons or snipers. It can fire up to 240 rounds per minute. It has an incredible fire rate, and you can quickly down your enemies if you make the most of that fire rate. So to do this, the first thing you want to do is not rush your shots. Take a second to line up your shots, and once you have that shot lined up, fire as fast as possible to get those shots out, down that enemy really quickly, and that'll give you the advantage in that squad fight. Another way to make the most of the fire rate is if you aim for the upper body. Now by aiming for the body, you're going to hit more of your shots, but if you aim for the upper portion, you're going to hit more headshots on later shots. The reason for this is because the G7's recoil pulls slightly up, so after those first couple shots, your shots will tend to go a little higher, and you'll aim more into the head area. Another thing that really helps the G7 with this fast fire rate is its damage. The G7 does 34 damage to a body shot, and 60 damage to a headshot. When comparing this to another marksman weapon such as the 30-30, this is almost as much damage while having almost double the fire rate. This showcases just how strong the G7 Scout is in the marksman class. Another strength the G7 has is its versatility at all ranges. In my opinion, the G7 is the best gun in the game at mid-range. You can outshoot anybody in a mid-range fight with a G7 Scout. But it also is very usable at close range and long range, making it super versatile if you can learn how to use it at those other ranges. Starting with close range. For close range fights with the Scout, you don't want it to be what you're relying on or going to for a close range fight. I usually carry a secondary for that, like an SMG or a 301, but in a pinch, the G7 Scout can actually be very effective close range. If you can hip fire with it, and it takes some getting used to, but if you can learn the hip fire pattern, get used to it, and if you can hip fire with it, you can actually do quite a bit of damage very quickly with the G7 Scout. Moving on to the mid-range. The mid-range is your bread and butter with the Scout. This is where you want to take your fights. This is what you want the distance to be when you're going into a fight with the G7 Scout. If you can keep this distance with all of your enemies, it'll make it really effective, and you will just dominate those fights. Moving on to long range, the Scout is still very effective at long range, however it's a bit more of doing poke damage, whittling down your enemy's shields, building up your own shield, and occasionally getting a knock. And this is largely because of one of the Scout's few weaknesses, which is at longer ranges, it's harder to hit moving targets, and it has a decent amount of bullet drop off. So to compensate for this, you'll have to get used to using it at longer ranges, and you'll have to lead your shots, placing them a little in front and a little above where you want them to be, so they can hit your target exactly. And this will take some getting used to. Moving on to the G7 Scout's other weakness, in my opinion, it has the worst iron sights in the game. Luckily, you can use any sight with the G7 and it's pretty good. From the 1x to the 1x2 to the 3x, 2x, 2x4, all of them can make the G7 pretty effective. It's just the different ranges you have to work with. I prefer to use the 3x, that's my favorite, but the 2x4 and the 2x are almost as good. So using those three are my go-tos. If you've enjoyed the video so far, be sure to like and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on when new videos come out. Also, if you want to be a bigger part of the community, check out the Discord link down below. Now let's talk about the hop-up for the G7 Scout, the double tap. Double tap allows you to fire a second bullet immediately after the first with one trigger pull. This can be very effective, especially at close range. I recommend always picking it up because you can turn it off and on when you need it. Double tap is very effective at close range and can even be used with some success at mid-range. However, when you get to the longer ranges, it's not near as effective because of the distance in between the two bullets, makes it hard to hit both shots. So for longer ranges, I recommend sticking to the single fire as you can fire both faster and hit more shots. All in all, double tap is a very good hop up, and it further increases the versatility of the G7. Taking all this into account, I think you can see why I think the G7 is the best gun in the game. It's my favorite gun. I fell in love with it when I started playing the game, and I hope this tutorial can help you guys enjoy it as much as I do.